Hi folks, Dr. Hopewell and Dr. Lynn back again with the next installment of our screencast on drafting your introduction. We are at the statement of the problem section, and we have a couple of tips to help you navigate through this.
Okay, so we'll pull up our example so you can be looking at that. And one of the first things that you'll notice in bold-faced print, statement of the problem. Again, this is APA 6 format. It's intended for people who read a lot of proposals. They can come and find that section really quickly and just not and skip some of the other stuff if they want to. So this is often referred to as a subsection of your introduction. So statement of the problem. Your task here basically is just exactly what the heading says. You're going to say there's a problem that needs to be investigated, and it builds a case towards why are you doing this study. And so the first paragraph, it is basically you're saying very succinctly, this is what the experts are saying the problem is. The first sentence is really, really important. You can see that Casey here did a really great job by saying, review of literature has indicated that success in reading is a critical factor for success in school and beyond. So she's not saying it's just tied to my classroom and my students, but this is an important issue that we need to be aware of as teachers. One of the next things that she does then is she calls attention to what the experts say. And so let's go to the third question, or the third sentence that starts with research has proven. One of the things that I would suggest here is you want to say prior research and not has proven. Proven is a pretty strong word in research terminology. So you might use a phrase like has indicated or demonstrated or called attention to, that adding instruction improves retention and replication of that skill. And she's giving there the expert that said it to back it up. And then you'll see the remaining sentences in that first paragraph. Again, she's making expert statements, backing it up with those experts. Now, the next paragraph, this is where it gets fun for most of you. At least my experience with past students is this is the first place that you get to use the word I. This is where you're writing about, this is according to your view as an expert, as an educator in the classroom. This is what your experience, your observation, your concerns for your students. And so you'll see words like I have seen or I have observed. I've worked with students who, and you can use words like my students in my classroom. And so you're wanting the reader to really understand this is an issue, not just according to those experts out there that write books and journal articles, but I'm seeing this in my classroom as well. And what you're doing here by stating the problem is building up to, ta-da, this is why I want to do my study, and the focus of my study is going to be. And so now we're going to segue to Dr. Hopewell's guidance on writing the purpose statement for your study and the importance of writing good research questions.
Okay, so you may be getting a theme here, and we hope you are, that you begin with the external expert's opinion or research in the past that has driven you in a certain direction. So in your classroom, you've got these inklings of ideas or nagging questions that we've worked on, and then you went out and you gathered data on what do the experts say, and that's laid a foundation upon which you can come back and say, here are the things that I've observed. Okay, we just talked about that. The next thing we're going to talk about is crafting that statement of problem. And for that, I'm going to call your attention to the triangulation matrix template that will help you draft your statement of the problem. Now, keep in mind, this is it's a template that is not necessarily meant for you to fill in exactly, and we'll talk about the research questions down here because that's a problem students tend to have. But we're going to begin with following this basic general sentence structure up here. And what we have is the purpose of this, and then you're going to insert your type of study. Now, it's important that you remember that this is a draft. We're working on this. This is something that you put ideas down, you work over them, think about how they sound, do they make sense? And then you go through and you go back and you revise these things. So as you insert these things, the research, the action words. So the purpose of this, we'll say mixed method study, action research study is to, and then you're going to put in here explore, investigate, examine, that sort of thing. Which, to the extent to which, and then you're going to insert your intervention, your strategy, your tool that you may be using. Now, again, if it doesn't make grammatical sense, you're welcome to massage this sentence to fit. Again, this is just a template. It's a draft that you're going to use to get you started. So you're going to look at how the intervention influences or interacts with or impacts. These are different words that you could use here. Okay, students. Okay, you're going to be looking at the thing that you're wondering about whether it changes. Okay, now I would suggest that you also consider that in an action research study, the impact or the influence of your intervention may move beyond the students. In fact, I would argue it does move beyond the students. It impacts your entire classroom. You are a research data point, your students are a data point, and the culture in your classroom is a data point. So these are all different things that can be affected. And then you're going to say, what is all of this? How is it defined or how is it measured? Okay, and for that you can use your Common Core standards. So it's also important that you realize that you don't have to necessarily use the South Dakota Common Core standards. There may be other ways that you can define student performance or the way that your intervention influences your classroom. Again, use this as a draft, use it as a template. It's a place to start, but you don't necessarily have to force a square peg in a round hole. Okay, so you want to just, this is intended just to get you started. Now, down here, as we talk about research questions, it's important to realize you may not necessarily have a quantitative question. So in the past, I've had students feel like they have to force themselves to make a quantitative question and then two qualitative questions. No, no, no. This is just again, it's a template. It's a thing to get you started. So you'll start with your research questions. We have other resources in the module to help you with research questions, so we won't address that here. But the research question starts with, is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? What is the direction of the research question? Then you're going to ask yourself, how will I know how will I answer this question? What sorts of data will I use? And we talk about triangulation here. And triangulation is a way of looking at answering a question from several different angles. 3 would be the triangulation term, but you could use 4 if you wanted to use that, but it's still triangulation. But the point of that is that you look at it you confirm things from several different angles. So if you have a student perspective, your perspective, and then perhaps a hard set of data, that would be 3 different ways of answering the same question. So how does my intervention influence or impact my students? There's my opinion as a teacher, my observations as a teacher. There's student reaction, student interest, and then there's data, perhaps scores. So in our coaching sessions, some of you, we encourage you to go beyond just, does this improve student scores on spelling tests, for example? Well, there are other ways to look at student performance and student action in your classroom beyond just the grade. That's one data point. And then we move over here to the third column. How am I going to collect this data? So is it a teacher journal for you? Do you sit down and journal after each class period or after each day or maybe at lunchtime each day? Are you going to send a questionnaire to your students and ask them all to fill out a questionnaire? Or are you going to do a focus group, which is where you select several students from within your classroom to sit down and have a group interview? Are you going to interview students? Okay, all of these have choices that go with them. How are you going to collect that data? The data that you collect from student performance on tests or quizzes is much easier to collect, but you're going to put all of that information in here to help you organize. Now, don't feel like this matrix right here has to be perfect. This is, again, it's a working document. We're going to be moving forward, but we need to start organizing things.
Okay, maybe we'll just go back to Casey's paper again and just highlight a couple of things that help you see how that template can guide you. So you can see her purpose statement. By reading her purpose statement, she's planning a mixed methods action research study. So that's telling us she's going to have both a quantitative and qualitative approach to her study in terms of her questions, but mainly how she's going to collect data. She also identifies her intervention, the grade level, and you can see a blank down below on the first sentence. It says, as measured by. That's something that I inserted when I read her paper because she needs to indicate it's not just going to be according to what she thinks is appropriate as a teacher, but is there a guideline or a standard that she's going to use? And so she's going to be using the Common Core. You'll see in her example, she's got 3 questions. And there's a quantitative question element and there's qualitative. If you read those, I think you'll see that after you read the chapter for this module. But when I talked with Casey, she decided that question number 3 really wasn't essential. So we were able to narrow that down to 2 questions. And then the triangulation matrix, even though in this section of the proposal you don't have to write your data collection methods, you'll do that in the methodology, it helped her think ahead of what she will be doing when she writes her methods section. So hopefully this is helpful to you. You'll see feedback from us when we give it back, our responses back to you. Remember, this is a draft. It takes time, and it just gets better over time and with more discussion. So thanks for your attention. Hope this is helpful.